For most of human history, we've cared for plants based on, well, a calendar, a little intuition, and maybe a bit of guesswork. But what if we could do better? What if we could actually talk to them? Today, we're going to dive into how some incredible new tech is finally letting us have a real, data-driven conversation with the botanical world. Let's dig in.
I mean, just think about it. What if your tomato plant could send you a little push notification saying, "Hey, I'm getting thirsty," hours before it even starts to look sad and wilted? Or if your prize rose could warn you about a fungus attack before you ever see a single spot on its leaves? This isn't science fiction anymore, folks. It's the new reality of smart gardening, where we're finally learning to listen in on a silent dialogue that's been happening all along.
So, to really understand this new language, we're going to go on a little journey together, from the macro to the micro. We'll start by listening to what the ground beneath the plant is saying. Then, we're going to get up close and personal with some wearable tech for the plant itself. And finally, we'll go all the way in and decode the genetic signals firing off inside its cells. It's going to be quite a ride. Okay, so every conversation has to start somewhere, right? For plants, that conversation begins with the soil. I mean, this is the foundation of everything, and it's really the first place our technology learned to listen. For the longest time, the main way we measured soil moisture was pretty straightforward. We just asked, how much water is in here? That's called volumetric water content. But it turns out there's a much, much smarter question to ask. How hard is the plant actually working to get that water? That's soil-water tension. See, a plant in some dense clay soil might be really struggling to drink, even if there's plenty of water around. But a plant in sandy soil might be having a super easy time. Tension, that gives us the plant's true perspective. It's about effort, not just availability. So how in the world do these sensors pull this off? Well, it all comes down to a really cool physics principle called the dielectric constant. Here's how it works. Imagine sending a tiny electrical pulse through the soil. Now, if that soil is bone dry, the signal is pretty weak. It gets a score of like 3 to 5. But water is basically a super highway for that electricity. It gets a score of 80. So by measuring the strength of that signal, the sensors can tell with incredible accuracy just how much water is down there. It's such a simple idea, but it powers this entire conversation. Of course, not all sensors are built the same. On one end, you've got your basic resistive sensors. They're cheap, they're great for hobbyists, but they can corrode and sometimes get confused by fertilizer in the soil. Then you've got capacitance sensors. These are kind of the reliable workhorses you'd see in a commercial greenhouse. And at the very top, you have TDR sensors. These are the gold standard, used for scientific research, and they are incredibly precise. The cool thing is, this shows there's a tool for everyone, whether you're tending a basil plant on your windowsill or doing cutting-edge research. Okay, so listening to the soil is great. It's a huge step, but it's still an indirect signal, right? To get even closer to the truth, we need to listen directly to the plant itself. And believe it or not, it's time to talk about wearable tech for plants. And yep, it is exactly what it sounds like. We're talking about a Fitbit for your fern. These are these tiny, flexible sensors that you can stick right onto a leaf or wrap around a stem. So instead of waiting for the soil to dry out and then for the plant to react, these wearables give us an immediate, real-time feed of what's happening inside the plant. It's really the difference between hearing a rumor about what the plant is feeling and getting the story straight from the source. So how do they actually detect stress? Well, one of the very first things a plant does when it's in trouble, whether that's from drought or heat or a disease, is produce a chemical signal, hydrogen peroxide. These amazing new sensors use tiny microneedles to literally sample this chemical right out of the leaf. It detects that signal, sends an alert, and lets the grower fix the problem long before the plant even starts to look sick. This is all about being proactive, not reactive. It's a total game changer. And it's not just about chemistry either. Other wearables are tracking physical changes. Take the plant ring, for example. This thing measures the incredibly small daily contractions and expansions of a plant stem. A stem actually shrinks just a tiny bit as it uses water during the day, and then it swells back up at night. By tracking the exact rhythm of this pulse, the system knows the precise moment that plant is thirsty. How cool is that? All right, we've listened to the soil. We've listened to the plant's body. Now we're going to the deepest level you can possibly go. We're going to listen to its genes. We are literally about to decode the plant's internal instruction manual as it's being written. For the longest time, if you wanted to see what was happening on a molecular level inside a plant, you had to do something pretty brutal. You'd take a leaf, grind it all up, and run it through some big machine in a lab. It was destructive, and it only gave you a single snapshot in time. But now now we have live in-plant biosensors. This is like going from a single old-timey photograph to a continuous 24/7 high-definition live stream of a plant's genetic activity. So, how is that even possible? Well, think of it like a tiny biological search party. Scientists design these guide molecules that are programmed to find just one specific thing, like the RNA signal from a particular stress gene. So when the plant gets stressed and sends out that signal, the little search party finds it, and that triggers a molecular switch. This switch then creates a fluorescent protein, which basically makes that part of the plant glow. You're literally watching the plant light up to tell you exactly which part of its genetic defense system it's using, in real time. It's just mind-blowing. And this molecular revolution doesn't stop there. We're now starting to use CRISPR, the famous gene editing tool, but not to change genes. We're using it to find them. It's being repurposed as this incredibly precise detection tool for spotting plant diseases. And this is a massive leap forward. Your traditional lab tests, they can take hours, sometimes days, and they need all this bulky, expensive lab equipment. A CRISPR-based diagnostic test, though, it can identify a specific virus right there in the field from a single leaf sample in under 45 minutes. This creates an early warning system against crop epidemics that we've just never had before. So we have this absolute flood of data, right? We're getting signals from the soil, from wearables on the leaves, from inside the plant's actual cells. So what do we do with all of it? How do we turn this silent dialogue into a real action plan? Well, the answer is artificial intelligence. You can think of AI as the universal translator in this conversation. It takes these millions of complex data points from all these sensors and just synthesizes them into simple, clear advice. It's basically like having a world-renowned botanist and a plant pathologist living in your pocket, constantly analyzing everything and telling you exactly what you need to do next. And the accuracy is just astounding. Some of these AI models can now identify plant diseases and pests from a single smartphone photo with over 98% accuracy. You just snap a picture of a leaf that looks a little weird, and this crop doctor in your pocket gives you a diagnosis in seconds. And that speed is just so critical. Remember that CRISPR test? The ability to confirm a virus in less than 45 minutes, right there in the field, lets a farmer immediately quarantine an area and stop a small problem from becoming a catastrophic outbreak. Speed equals savings, and in a lot of cases, it equals survival for a whole crop. So how can regular people get their hands on this stuff? Well, the market is actually incredibly diverse. You've got these polished commercial controllers for homeowners. For all the tinkerers out there, you have powerful DIY platforms like Raspberry Pi and Arduino. And then you have these amazing open source projects like Open Sprinkler, which kind of bridge the gap. There's really a solution for pretty much every budget and every skill level. But here it is. This is the bottom line. Why does all of this matter? It matters because adopting these data-driven technologies can lead to water savings between 20 and 60%. Let that sink in. In a world that's facing more and more water scarcity, that isn't just a small improvement. That is a full-blown revolution in how we do sustainable agriculture and keep our cities green. So where is all this heading? What we're witnessing here is a fundamental shift in our relationship with the entire plant kingdom. And it's all being powered by our newfound ability to finally truly listen. This quote from the research, it just says it all, doesn't it? The plant is no longer just this passive thing we water and fertilize. Through this technology, it becomes an active collaborator, an active participant, telling us exactly what it needs right when it needs it. It's a true partnership. From the tension in the soil all the way to the whisper of a single gene, we are learning to translate a language we never even knew existed. And this dialogue is only going to get deeper and richer and more detailed. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Now that we're learning to speak plant, what other silent conversations are happening all around us, just waiting for a translator? Thanks for watching.